Welcome everybody to another very special World of Tanks video. My name is Maxwell, and today I wanted to bring you something from even further in the future. So I know I brought a video not too long ago about the new map coming in 9.7 Overlord. Once again, looks amazing. This one is even further in the future, and today I'm going to be showcasing the new physics system that World of Tanks is going to be implementing post patch 9.7. We haven't been told exactly when it's going to be implemented, but we're told that it's not coming in 9.7, so that's why I've marked this video as 9.8 plus. We don't know when it's coming. It might be 9.8, it might be 9.9, it might be version 10. We're not sure yet, and this is a very early iteration of it, but we're going to go ahead and have a look and just showcase the new physics model with some tanks. So first we're going to take a look at the AMX 1390, a pretty standard light tank. We're going to have a look. There we go. You see that first thing straight away there. One of the new things that you can do is use a handbrake in a tank to very, very quickly change its direction of motion. So you can say, as you would be able to in a real tank, stop a track moving entirely and just pivot on the spot as you're moving, which would put you into a spin. And as you can imagine, this is going to be very, very handy to do with any kind of class of tank, whether it be heavy, medium, or light. Especially with a light, because you're going to be able to make very sharp turns. No longer are you going to have to worry too much about turning circles, especially in crowded city maps. You're going to be able to pull very quick, very tight turns with your tank. Now, we haven't been told whether this is going to be just an inbuilt feature or whether it's going to be a separate key, but the information that we were given does talk about a handbrake, so I would imagine that it is on a key rather than just naturally happening when you turn too sharply. I think that's definitely a good idea, as we don't want the game to end up feeling a lot like the way War Thunder's physics feel, as that sometimes kind of feels a little bit like tanks on ice rather than tanks driving on whatever actual surface they are. They're just way too slidey and way too slippery for my liking. So I would assume, although, well, you can quote me on it, but it may be wrong, but I would assume that the handbrake would be on a key rather than on just normally when you make a sharp turn. One thing you will notice as well is that all of the suspension now works. We'll take a closer look at that later on. But apart from, there we go, having a little bit of a skid down the hill there, you can use this to regulate speed. Use it to change direction sharply, but other than that, it's not going to be such a huge departure that you're going to need to relearn how to play the game. It's going to be fairly similar to the way that you're used to playing. It's just there's going to be lots of little changes that you can use to your advantage. Once you learn them and once you master the different techniques and pulling tight turns and some things we're going to look at later, then you're definitely going to be in good shape. Now, with the change in the physics, it does mean that some certain areas that were inaccessible on certain maps before are going to suddenly become accessible now. That means things like little rubble piles, little hills and outcroppings that normally were impassable, that a tank wouldn't be able to climb up, are now going to be passable, and a tank is going to be able to scale them. So it's going to be fun trying to find these different places. It looks like the climbing capacity of most tanks has been increased. You can see there, rather than the AMX 1390 having to take a wide arc to turn around there, or stopping on the spot and traversing dead still, he was able just to pull the handbrake, spin his tank all the way around very, very quickly, and if they wanted to, they could drive off in a different direction. There's one last thing I want to take a look at before we move on to the next tank. And that is one major change, is that now tanks aren't relegated to the same plane. As you can see, they are able to flip over onto their roofs now. So now we're going to take a look at a heavy tank, albeit a fairly quick and manoeuvrable heavy tank, the AMX 50-100. Although it's going to serve our purposes very well here, it is still a heavy tank. We'll take a look at a slightly heavier tank after this one. But right now, we're just going to take a look at this, and as you can see straight away, you can pull the same handbrake maneuvers in a heavy tank that you can in the light tank from earlier, and that is going to prove to be hugely useful in a multitude of situations. I'm going to go through some of those situations in a moment. So you can just imagine that if you are coming up to a corner in a city map, and rather than stopping and then reversing and pulling forward and reversing and pulling forward and reversing to get into a side scraping position, now what you can do is you can approach the corner and then pull the handbrake like that to skid your backside out a little bit and come to rest just in a perfect side scraping position on the corner. I think that actually gets demonstrated perfectly, or almost perfectly, in the next video, so we'll just go ahead and talk a little bit more about this one. So if this tank had a little bit more power to weight ratio, you could see that with a little bit of speed that this area might become passable. I'm not quite sure if you'd be able to get a tank up there, but it's going to be fun trying it out with something like a Panzer 1C or something with a little bit more engine torque. And that's what I was talking about areas that were once impassable and now going to be accessible thanks to the new physics system. So it's really this handbrake that's going to be the huge deal in this game, and it's going to change the way that people fight quite a lot. It's going to make a huge bit of difference. You see, just trying to find different areas where they may be able to climb up, but it looks like the 5100 is just a little bit too heavy. Not quite got the engine power or the speed to be able to make it up that hill, but what it does have is maneuverability. You can see there just quickly flicking the back end out there. One other situation where I can see that being very useful is how many times are you driving forward and you have a light tank come zipping past you, or even a fast medium come zipping past you and start putting shots into your rear. Well, no more is that going to be as much of a problem. As you can imagine, as you're driving forward, you can flick that handbrake and keep your front armor directly facing at the light tank as it comes flying past you. And then you're going to be able to keep your strongest armor on target at all times. It also means that you're going to be able to keep your gun on target a lot better. If you hold the right mouse button just before you make a maneuver like that, you can keep your turret locked in place so it turns with the body of the tank. And that means you're going to be able to traverse it onto a target that comes zipping past you or is on your side a lot faster than you were able to before with just standard traverse. It's going to be interesting to see how that works with some significantly heavier tanks. Obviously something like the KV-4 is never going to be able, or even the KV-2 is never going to be able to traverse that quickly. So it's going to be interesting to see what you can do with a tank that heavy. It's going to be fun playing around with it. So going back to what I was saying about flicking your front armor onto the target of the light tank, it's going to be interesting for the light tank drivers to then have to pull handbrake turns to get a sharp enough angle to drive around a heavy tank and keep firing at the weak spots. It's going to be very interesting to see that one play out. So as you can see, tank able to turn fairly quickly. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but that looks like faster traverse than if you just did it on the spot by holding the left or the right key, the A or the D. That looks like it was faster than just standard traverse to me, but we'll have to run the numbers once we're able to get our hands on it. And we're just going to see another example of a tank landing from a great height here. Going to barrel all the way down the hill. There we go, lands directly on his roof, explodes, and that's his game over there. Now we are going to take a look at a slightly heavier tank, the IS-3. I'm going to see how this one performs with the new physics model. So really this is just to let you guys have a look at how the various different tanks are going to handle under these conditions. And we're going to see the first bit of handbrake turning here. And that's going to be a fantastic maneuver that heavy tanks are going to be able to pull. Approach a corner and hit the handbrake and spin the tank out so they can get around the corner whilst keeping their front armor pointed in the direction of the danger at all times, rather than having to come all the way out and then turning to face your opponents after exposing all of that side armor. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that one plays out. As you can see, just making use of this handbrake turning. I think we're going to get a nice example of, there you go, spinning around a little bit there, of what I was talking about with the side scraping earlier. As you approach this corner here, you hit the Handbrake. Did a little bit late there for what we would have preferred for perfect side scraping, but you can see what I mean. As you approach the corner, hit the handbrake, get the emergency turn in there, get a little bit of a skid, and get yourself set up into a side scraping position without losing any time, and with very, very little setup required. So you can see this is going to be very, very useful for heavy tanks as well as light tanks. And in fact, to be honest, I think it may even be more useful for medium tanks. And in fact, I think that's all we're going to look at the IS-3. We pretty much just go over the same stuff we had gone over with the AMX 50-100. Just very quickly, you can see that it looks like this type of traverse is faster than standard traverse. Although, again, I think we're going to have to run the numbers on that one once it goes to the test server. So let's take a look at a medium tank. Now we're going to take a look at some medium tanks. First off, we're going to take a look at the Panzer IV. I think this new physics is going to prove to be very, very useful for medium tanks, especially for quick medium tanks. And this is going to showcase a lot of the physics off right here in this video. So, first thing you're going to notice is the climbing and jumping physics are a lot more realistic. As you came over that hill there, it was a lot more realistic than it had been in the past. So that's going to be something great to look forward to. And just generally, the tank's going to feel a lot more like a tank rather than an arcade driver, which is always, always appreciated. But it's not going to be the case of World of Tanks on ice, I don't think. Especially if you have to activate a specific button to perform these handbrake maneuvers. You can see just pulling a quick donut there. And the same thing again, you can see that this is you're going to be able to use this to great effect to confuse and confound your opponents in close quarters combat, which is what the medium tanks excel at. I'm just going to see him come through and crash through a couple of houses here before we take a look at some more different terrain passing. So as you can see, train tracks not proving to be the massive obstacle that they had once before. You remember train tracks used to be fairly difficult to cross over, especially in smaller tanks. Now, not so much at all, just having a quick skid down the hill. You can see going 3/4 of a circle there before reversing and then pulling the same handbrake maneuver. So that one is what we call a police turn back. It may be a more technical term for it than that, but you can reverse your tank once you get up to a decent amount of speed. You can hit that handbrake, stop one of your tracks from moving, and that will in effect flip the tank around very, very quickly. So you could use that if you were being chased by a light tank and a light tank got past you. You could then hit the handbrake and spin the tank all the way around to then have your front armor facing that tank. So this is going to be, we're going to see a lot more elegant pirouettes going on than we had done in the past, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see the different emergent gameplay that comes out of this new physics system. So there's one other major thing that I want to go over before the end of the Panzer IV video, and that's track survivability. Now, it's been told to us that tracks that are moving when you fall from a distance and land are going to be a lot more survivable than they were in the past. So when barreling down a hill, if your tracks are moving when you land, you've got a lot more chance of them staying on rather than getting broken to pieces and you left in a pool of your own shame. As we're going to see as he comes down the hill there, just jumps all the way down, keeps his tracks moving, loses a lot of hit points, but his tracks survive and he carries on through the water out of there. So it has been said that the tracks are going to be a lot more survivable as we go forward. You can also notice that there's a little bit of a graphical change to the track animation. We'll go over that more in the next video, where we're going to be looking at another medium tank. So then, as you can see, comes straight over the top, skids over the train tracks, no problem whatsoever. Train tracks nowhere near as big an obstacle as they had been before. So I think this physics, especially the way that they've been shown here, is going to be much more important for the medium tanks than it is for any other class. So the last tank we're going to take a look at today is the T-44. And here we're going to see the effect of the suspension. You can see as you sharply brake, your gun can dip down and dip up. That's going to be handy to get a little bit of extra gun depression, but it's also going to be difficult to use and master correctly. So one thing you may have noticed as well is the new track effects. The wheels now stop and spin and skid in place. They also kick up dirt in the direction that you are driving. So a few nice little graphical changes there being added in along with the physics. You may have noticed that as the tank started to accelerate, the wheels skidded in place before starting up, and that sprayed a lot of dirt in the direction of the skid. We're also going to see a little bit of the changes in the climbing ability of certain tanks. So we're going to head down to the rocky region just at the bottom here. Going to have a quick skid in, and this area was fairly passable for light tanks. Some areas were a little bit difficult to maneuver, but now you're going to see that the tank behavior is a lot more realistic than it was before. Going to try and see area like that way too steep for a tank to be able to climb, so you're going to have to take it at a different angle. And you can see the tracks skidding in places. They're trying to get purchase up this hill. You can see getting the ability to climb from a different angle. Able to go up this sharp incline here thanks to the angle that he was pivoted at. So climbing ability has changed, so it's going to be, as I said earlier, very fun going around and trying to find the different places that you are able to climb now thanks to these physics changes. I'm going to take just one more look at a tank flipping over a full 360-degree rotation, which was not possible before. If your tank tried to flip over too far, it was stopped, and there was only a maximum angle that it could fall, whereas now it can tumble and spin as never before. As you will see here, it hits the wall, spins over a couple of times, lands on the roof, and done. So very quickly, I just want to take one look at the T-34 medium tank, and just to take another look at the suspension and the way that it operates. So if we take a look here, you can see the dirt that gets kicked up as they change direction sharply. You can also see the wheels skidding in place as it starts to move. And that's basically just what I wanted to have another quick look at that we saw on the T-44. So I think that about covers it for the future physics for the game. Although we will see very quickly track survivability again. Tracks do get a little bit damaged, but they do survive thanks to the fact that they were in motion as they landed. So that's going to do it for this very quick look at the new physics model. Going to be implemented sometime beyond patch 9.7. It's going to be patch 9.8 at the very earliest onwards. So don't hold me to a date because we haven't had one quoted yet. As soon as I know anything more, obviously I'll let you guys know. And if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. Also, let me know in the comments what you're most looking forward to trying to do with these new physics and what fun you think you're going to be able to get up to with the new handbrake turn ability. And also let me know what areas you think are going to be interesting to try and climb now. So, thanks very much for watching, everybody. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button, because there is a lot more World of Tanks content on this channel. I'm just going to let this video play out. If you want to see the rest of it, I've been Maxwell. This has been a first look at the new physics system for World of Tanks, and I'll catch you guys next time.